Well, today we find out, did Victoria University's conversion therapy work on me? Now, to recap, in part one, I asked, is Victoria University trying to destigmatise paedophilia? A study by Victoria University says that reducing stigma towards people with a sexual attraction to children is important for mitigating the negative consequences of stigma. And, well, they say ideally reducing the risk of offending from this group. So in the second McBLOG, I enrolled in the survey and I started the conversion therapy. And I also explained to you where the notions of pedophilia, stigma, orientation and victim came from, using the evidence of the agenda from overseas. Well, today in this final part, I complete the journey of conversion therapy. Did it work? So let me start with where I'm at personally. Now, according to Wikipedia, pedophilia is a psychiatric disorder in which an adult or older adolescent experiences a primary or exclusive sexual attraction to prepubescent children. People with the disorder are often referred to as pedophiles. Now, there is hebephilia, a sexual preference for children in early adolescence, 11 to 14, and ephebophilia, which I think is how you say it, an attraction for older adolescents. But it loosely comes under the one label, pedophilia. That's why I've put the tomato there. Tomato, tomato, it's the same thing. It's a disorder, a deviance, which must be treated. And left untreated and acted upon, it will leave untold harm to both the victims and to the offender. The stigma is a good thing. It's a very healthy stigma, which hopefully redirects the offender. But more importantly, the stigma is there to try and protect the victim, the child. Do we condemn the pedophile? Well, not if they don't act on their desires, and definitely not if they seek the necessary help, which even Victoria University admits is available. It's no different to anybody else who may struggle with the propensity to be violent to women, violent to children, addicted to alcohol, addicted to drug use. Someone who really wants to kill people who offend them. Someone who's sexually abusive and demanding towards women and perhaps even men. The list goes on. And there's a study published in the US National Institute of Health Journal back in 2007 that says human behaviour is subject to genetic variations. The ways in which individuals differ in their intellectual abilities, personalities and mental health are, to a large extent, functions of their inherited genetic predispositions. But as Anna Salter, a US psychologist, author and internationally recognised expert in this area, says, it's a choice to act on child molestation. We don't need to say offending isn't so bad, it really isn't your fault, you really couldn't control it, you are a victim of a punitive society. We need to say offending is devastating, it damages the lives of victims, it has damaged your life, you can learn to control yourself, you have the capacity to do better. There's an academic attempt to label concerns about pedophiles working with children, living in your area, being amongst family and their children as irrational and unfair, that we need to reduce the perceptions of dangerousness. Yes, that was in an Auckland University study. And that they have a condition that is not their choice and none of them will act on it. And sadly, we know this to be false. And part of this attempt is never to use the word pedophile because it's mean and nasty. Will we one day not be able to use the term rapist or addict or abuser? See, here's the bottom line. Trying to destigmatise morally eroded behaviour generally ends up normalising it. The compulsion to abuse children is not a morally neutral one. It should be stigmatised and attract social disapproval. And that's exactly what Associate Professor of Criminology at the University of New South Wales, Michael Salter, said. Now, the good news is that paedophilia can be treated with hormone medication therapies, cognitive behaviour therapy, psychosocial methods such as group therapy, testosterone-lowering drugs have shown positive results. We should definitely increase support for men who want help. So, I will act to protect the child first and foremost from any real or perceived threat. Secondly, I'll do everything I can to coerce and encourage the pedophile to get treatment. And as I said, the good news is that it can be treated. So that is definitely an option that is available there. But the offender has to want that help. So part 2 of the therapy, the conversion therapy by Victoria University, arrived by email to me. And I'm introduced to 3 dudes. And it says, throughout the next 3 modules, we'll introduce you to 3 people. Joe, Sam and Rick will tell you more about them and their lives. You'll get to know them better. And this is Joe. Joe's in his 30s. He works in a butchery. He's got 2 younger brothers. His parents have been married a long time. They grew up in rural New Zealand. And when they were young, they played rugby. And Joe's younger brothers still play rugby, but Joe had to quit. He had an injury. And they get together regularly for a barbecue, and Joe has worked in a butchery. So that is Joe, and he enjoys barbecuing for his friends and family's different cuts of meat. This is Sam. Sam has recently turned 20 and is in their 2nd year of university studying marketing. Now, you'll note here, just to maintain our wokeism, that Sam identifies as they. So you've got to sort of get through all that as you read this. They grew up in the city suburbs with their older brother and younger sister, splitting time between dad's house and their mum and dad's step house. They're just one person, currently living in a flat with friends from university. Sam spent childhood obsessed with music, wanted a guitar, collected vinyl records. It's not a bad thing. I did that as well. He wants to start a band, but his dad, has pushed him to pursue a university degree and get a real job and maybe a real pronoun. Sam doesn't mind university classes, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's a bit more background about that. And then this is Rick. Rick is in his late 40s, works in IT, recently moved into a new town in order to be closer to his mum after his dad died. He's got a teenage daughter who lives with her mum most of the time. Rick's been in IT, blah, 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 likes the consistency. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what they're actually telling us here, just that he likes fishing, often cook up his catches for himself. That's nice. But here's the interesting thing. You'll note from all these 3 images, 1, 2, 3, that only men can be pedophiles apparently and sexually attracted to children. And the second thing is it's only white men. This is Critical Theory 101. White people are the problem. And then I'm told, and here's where the conversion therapy starts, there are a lot of stereotypes about the kinds of people who experience this attraction, about what they look like, how they act, and even how old they are. Like many stereotypes, these are often false. People who have a sexual attraction to children are just like anyone else in the community, but they happen to experience a sexual attraction that cannot be acted upon morally or legally. Good. Having a sexual attraction to children doesn't dictate other aspects of someone's life or their hobbies or interests or personalities. Okay, and then they say, and of course they also say that they have this particular sexual attraction but not anything else about them. It only means that you know they have a particular sexual attraction but not anything else about them. Now, sadly, we know that to be completely false. Pedophiles do get away with horrendous crimes, sadly, through their sneakiness and deception. They're usually seductive, manipulative, and highly controlling. So on to the next sheet. Anyone in your community could potentially experience a sexual attraction to children. Now, note the attempts by the academics to make this disorder as normal as needing a coffee fix every morning. And it says, Module 1 mentioned how people with a sexual attraction to children tend to realise their attraction at a young age, about the same time that other people are realising their own sexual orientations. This means that people who experience a sexual attraction to children are not only adults, but also adolescents who are discovering their sexual interests for the first time. And then they say having a sexual attraction to children doesn't make someone a monster or a bad person. It's just a part of their life that they didn't choose. It also doesn't mean that they will act on their attractions by abusing a child, even though they may have sexual thoughts and attractions to children. Like the general public, many people with this attraction understand the incredible harm that sexual abuse does to children and are strongly opposed to acting on their attractions because of this. Okay, but this is where they really start to lose me. While some people with a sexual attraction to children may sexually offend, many don't. Alongside this, many people who do sexually abuse a child aren't motivated by having a sexual attraction to children. No. That's like saying an alcoholic really doesn't like the alcohol. A rapist doesn't like the sex. The guy that beats his missus to a pulp actually deeply loves her. And then finally, there's a quiz. If someone has a sexual attraction to children, that means they're quiet and reserved, they're single, they're a man, a bad person, like they like childish things, all of the above, none of the above. Yeah, could be any or all of those. You can't define it. This isn't going too well, this conversion therapy. Anyway, a couple of days later, module 3 arrives. And we're back to Joe, Sam and Rick and their personal stresses and life challenges. Joe's been struggling with anxiety since he was a teenager. He's got the worries on his chest, weight of worries on his chest, is concerned around how others will see him and whether he meets others' expectations. And it's become more apparent for Joe as he's become more interested in preparing and barbecuing meats. He started to wonder about training to be a chef, but he's a bit nervous about that step. Yeah, I don't know where it's going either. Blah, blah, blah. He doesn't want to think differently about him because of it. Oh, okay, that's him. Let's move on. Sam is worried that remember personal pronouns, they, them, their flatmates think badly of them, as Sam always seems to have new sexual partners over at the flat recently. They've noticed, now I'm not sure whether they've is the flatmates or Sam, that's a confusion. They've noticed how their flatmates look at each other when Sam gets home early in the morning or shows yet another person where the bathroom is and doesn't want their sex life to change their flatmates and friends' opinions of them. Remember, Sam's personal pronouns are they, just in case you're feeling confused. And Rick has been feeling pretty down. He and his ex-wife have separated. Thinks it was the right thing to do, but he's worried about relationship with his daughter. And his mother keeps bringing up about Rick's daughter. She'd like to see her grandchild. Still not sure where all this is going. You can probably guess though. But anyway, time for some more conversion therapy. And it says this: people with this attraction, in other words, pedophiles, face a great deal of stigma, as people often think that having a sexual attraction to children means that someone will sexually abuse a child, and that having the sexual attraction is a controllable choice. They may experience both public stigma and self-stigmatization. And you'll see there under public stigma those who are different and those who belong to or identify with that group. I don't think belonging to or identifying with pedophilia is a group that people sort of want to be part of. But anyway, remember, we're talking about pedophiles here, and it says public and self-stigma can lead to and amplify mental health struggles for many people with a sexual attraction to children, including experiences like depression and anxiety, loneliness, isolation, feelings of guilt and shame, and low self-esteem. Well, yeah, all the more reason to get treatment. And then it says the impact of stigma may be wider than just those who are stigmatized. Research on stigma and its effects on people with a sexual attraction to children implies that there may be links between the impact of stigma and an increased risk of sexual offending against a child. See where this is going? It's a similar argument that we heard during the cannabis debate. You know, if you legalize and reduce the so-called harm of illegality, punishment and stigma, you know, that everything will improve. No, the effects of stigma, such as isolation and loneliness and fears, as it says here, from others, apparently is a barrier for many with the attraction and managing their well-being. It can prevent them from telling people in their lives about their attractions and from seeking help when they really need it, either for mental health purposes or for concerns about acting on their attraction and offending. And then they say, alongside difficulties with help seeking, the available support is lacking. While there are some support services for people with a sexual attraction to children, many in that community feel there's not enough. The services that are available also may not meet people's needs. Okay, this is the one thing the researchers and I agree on. Get as much treatment available as possible to protect the victims from pedophiles and the pedophiles from themselves. But then they lose me because they say, those with the attraction have found that many services internationally tend to focus more on risk reduction and managing the attraction. Good. Rather than on helping people with their personal lives and mental health concerns, especially in dealing with the effects of stigma. No, it's all the same package. The reason you feel the stigma is because you have a sexual disorder. But here's the help you need. While stigma towards sexual attraction to children may prevent the attraction from being normalised and emphasises society's intolerance towards child sexual abuse, well, that's good. They've got that bit right. But then they say, it is often fueled by misunderstandings of the attraction, like that it's an active choice or that everyone with the attraction will sexually abuse a child sooner or later. Well, yeah, that's correct because we're not going to take the risk for your benefit, but mainly for the child's benefit. You have a sexual disorder. And then it says, myths like these mean that those with the attraction will face stigma for something they did not choose and for abusive actions that they have not committed and may not ever commit. Now, once again, it's a false equivalence. If the person doesn't act on their sexual disorder and gets help to manage it and doesn't offend, perfect outcome. But then they say, alongside this, the negative consequences of stigma far outweigh any benefits, particularly when considering the effect it may have on offending. Increasing awareness and educating people about sexual attractions to children may help to reduce stigma and the taboo of the topic, which will ideally encourage help seeking and improve the available support. These changes may help to reduce harm for everyone involved and ultimately improve people's well-being. See, the help is available. It's up to the willingness of the person to get that help. And then we have a quiz, and I assume it's to see if I've been converted yet. Which of the following are barriers to people with a sexual attraction to children accessing support services? And do I know the difference between public stigma and self-stigma? Perhaps they could ask me whether it's healthy and a good thing and spurs people to get the treatment they need and to change their actions. Anyway, a couple of days later, another email, and we're back to our 3 white cis men. I mean, I think that's what they are, white cis men. I know they're white and they're men. Are they cis? Now, while Joe and Sam and Rick are all just regular people, they have whānau, friends, hobbies and dreams and personal struggles. They have something in common. They all have a sexual attraction to children. Oh, now the penny drops. Joe realised that he's gay when he was 13. Okay, that's the cis part gone. Realised he was gay when he could be still cis. He realised he was gay when he was 13, but as he grew older, he noticed that the boys he's attracted to stay around 12 to 14. Even if he was attracted to men his age, he doesn't know if he'd be able to tell anyone, as he doesn't know how they'd react. Joe has tried to date women, but it never lasted. He's just not interested in them. He's also had a boyfriend previously. And while he deliberately hoped he could make the relationship work, he realised he also wasn't interested in men his age either. Trying to hide both his sexuality and attraction to children is causing him stress and distancing him from his family and friends. I don't like this connection between pedophilia and homosexuality. How did they get this past the supervisors and the ethics committee at Victoria University? Now, we go back to Sam. There's lots of theys in this because of his personal pronouns, so it's very confusing to read, but it is all about one person. Anyway, let's just read what it says. Sam has been having a lot of casual sex over the past 2 years with people their own age after realising they had a sexual attraction to a 10-year-old girl they'd met at their music lessons. While Sam's attracted to the people their age that they've been seeing, they feel they need to prove themselves that they're not attracted to young girls. After meeting the girl, he quit the music lessons, felt stressed around children, and now avoids going to places where children will be. Well, it's okay, Sam. Treatment is available. You might even lose the preferred pronouns in the process. And Rick and his ex-wife, we know that they separated, but he's holding a big secret from his wife. He has an attraction to young girls. Rick always knew he would never be attracted to his daughter, but he's worried about the secrecy. And as his daughter grew older, he separated himself, felt that separating from his wife and living apart would be the easiest way to keep his attraction a secret. And yeah, he doesn't want his daughter to find out. Here's a solution, Rick. Get treatment. I bet your daughter would really love to have you in her life. So why have we learnt about the 3 white men? Well, they say people with a sexual attraction to children can be anyone. They can be people in your community, your work, even friends and family. They can be Joe or Sam or Rick, and they can be struggling with their attraction and how it's affected in other parts of their lives. These are everyday people who deserve understanding, access to help and support, and deserve to live their lives without fear of stigmatization for something they cannot control and can choose not to act on. Wow. See the massive contradiction there? Cannot control, but can choose not to act on. So they can control. I mean, is there a typo there? Did I miss something? So anyway, now they're going to teach me how to talk about all of this, how to have conversations. And they say because of the stigma and taboo surrounding sexual attraction to children, it can be hard to discuss the topic without feeling like you need to agree with stereotypes and stigmatizing myths, especially if you don't know a whole lot about it or are worried that you may be judged for your views. And this module will give you some ideas for how to engage in conversations with other adults about people who have a sexual attraction to children and how to challenge myths and stereotypes. Well, I don't want to challenge myths and stereotypes. I want to get these people with a sexual disorder the help they urgently need and get the protection for children that the children urgently need. But anyway, they say before engaging in conversations around sexual attraction to children, try to consider how others you're talking with might react. It can be a sensitive topic, for example, due to the association with child sexual abuse. So it's understandable that some people may not feel comfortable talking about it. Further down, be aware that there's always a chance that sexual offending will become part of the discussion. Yeah. And this can be upsetting for many people, especially for people survivors with a history of sexual abuse or assault. It's also good to think about how open-minded the people you're talking to are. People can react in surprising ways when discussing sexual attraction to children. You think? Ironically, they then start, this is interesting, they then start blaming the media for issues around pedophilia and risks to children. And of course, reporting some of the horrific cases we have witnessed. And actually, when I was preparing this, even just at the weekend, there was this horrendous story from the New Zealand Herald. And one of the interesting points is about the fact that the victims were saying how difficult it was for them to speak up. Perhaps Victoria University could focus on the victims. But anyway, they say media is a big source of stereotypes and myth circulation. Movies, TV shows, news articles often refer to someone who has sexually abused a child as a pedophile. Yeah. Even though there's no proof that they have a sexual attraction to prepubescent children. These sorts of comments can lead to people thinking that that's what a pedophile is, anyone who sexually offends against a child, even though we know that's not true. No. Challenging these myths about people with a sexual attraction to children is an important step in reducing stigma and allowing those with the attraction to disclose to others and seek report. And then they say, imagine you're having a family dinner and someone brings up a news article they saw recently about someone who sexually abused a child. So this scenario is actual sexual abuse of a child by a pedophile. And someone chimes in with the comment, why don't we lock up all the pedophiles before they can do that? Well, you'll note that the question is not, how can we protect children from pedophiles? Or what responsibility does society have to protect children? Or how do we deter pedophiles from even thinking about harming our children? No, it's how you respond. And they've got some suggestions for me. The media make it sound like pedophilia and child sexual abuse are the same things. Yeah. Not everyone who abuses a child like that is actually attracted to them. That's going to go down well at the dinner table. People don't choose to have an attraction to children. And then there's another scenario. Now it's your turn. Imagine you're walking through the park with friends and you're passing a playground. Sorry about that. You need to subscribe. There we are. Subscribe to YouTube for our channel. You're walking through the park with friends, and as you're passing a playground, you see an older man watching the children playing. A friend gives the man a dirty look and says to you, "I bet he's a pedophile." How do you respond? Well, that could have been my dad looking after my children and taking them to the park, which he regularly did, and which the children absolutely loved being with their grandfather. Context really does matter, doesn't it? And finally, there's a end of Module 4 quiz. Just a few questions to reflect on today. How would you respond if someone told you that they might be attracted to children? Get some help. And what are some other situations where myths and stereotypes can be challenged? So, did I pass? Did the conversion therapy work on me? Well, the final email arrived over the weekend, and there were some general questions. How did I learn about the study, my highest degree or level of school that I've completed? Where have I previously read or heard about people with sexual attraction to children? Have I had any contact with someone acknowledging a sexual attraction to children? And the answer is yes. And then agreement or disagreement, and how strongly. Now, these agree or disagrees were a repeat of session 1. So they were testing to see whether the conversion therapy on me had worked. But there were a few questions that stood out just briefly, whether I agreed or disagreed with. In this one, people with a sexual attraction to children should be allowed to work with children. Well, only if they've had therapy. But even then, I'd have concerns because of the sexual disorder. In this one, they want my opinion on people are not responsible for their sexual preferences, but they are responsible for their behaviour. It's both, actually. People with a sexual attraction to children, this one. People with a sexual attraction to children who do not act on their sexual attraction deserve professional support, and they deserve family support. Yep, absolutely. Prevention programs may reduce the risk of people with a sexual attraction to children acting upon their attraction. Well, yeah, that's a given, I think. Sexual attraction to children is something that actually all of these ones, note in this box here, is all about choosing, that you choose for yourself. If someone has a sexual attraction to children, there is nothing they can do about it. It is their own fault. People can decide whether they have a sexual attraction to children. It's a disposition you cannot do anything about. Have consciously decided to have this disposition. And in this one, it's all about whether they are dangerous for children. Pedophiles are dangerous for children. And interesting, that one in the middle there. There exists no strong relationship between sexual attraction to children and sexual abuse of children. And sexual attraction to children, sooner or later, leads to child sex abuse. Okay, and lastly, the privacy of people with a sexual attraction to children is more important than information and safety needs of the public. Well, it's the protection of children that is the priority here. Then there's a survey about how I felt about the study and whether I'd learnt anything. And then finally, the debriefing. And let me show this fully so that you can see it. And I'll just highlight some parts you'll see here highlighted, okay? And it says this. As you'll have learnt from the modules, people with a sexual attraction to children are ordinary people who experience a sexual attraction that cannot be acted upon legally or ethically. Good. However, media often dehumanizes them and portrays them as inherently inclined to harm children, despite research showing otherwise. This misrepresentation, coupled with widespread misunderstanding that the attraction is the same as abuse, results in these individuals experiencing a great deal of stigma. This stigma can result in emotional distress and reluctance to disclose their attraction. And then further down, encouraging these individuals to seek support when they need it is an objective of stigma reduction research, which attempts to develop effective techniques for influencing public attitudes towards people with a sexual attraction to children and reduce stigma. Actually, you can have the stigma and get people to get the treatment they need, can't they? The role of the stigma is to encourage a person to get treatment. Anyway, ultimately, the goal of this area of research is to reduce the incidence of sexual abuse. Good. Reducing stigma towards people with a sexual attraction towards children is not intended to reduce stigma towards child sexual abuse or to normalise the attraction. Instead, it's intended to lift the taboo from the topic and allow for those who need support to seek it. That's interesting. They say stigma is okay. You'll see down the bottom there, stigma is okay for child sexual abuse. It's not intended to reduce stigma towards child sexual abuse. So stigma is okay, but only, it seems, when they say it is. But here's the ironic bit, because you'll notice that the big push is about they need treatment and we're stopping them because we're so nasty. But at the bottom of the study, they list all the helplines and support services. Now, the other interesting thing is that they're primarily for victims, mental health, affected by sexual harm, impacted by sexual harm. And then if you're unsure about your own thoughts or behaviours towards children or are concerned about the behaviour of someone you know, contact Wellstop. And in fact, there's a number of agencies that are available for people to get this help. In fact, the article in the Dominion Post, the Post in Wellington, listed some of those agencies where people could get help. So you'll be pleased to know that the conversion therapy didn't work on me. I will act to protect the child first and foremost from any real or even perceived threat. I will always have a bias towards the victim, especially the child. I will do everything I can to coerce and encourage the paedophile to get treatment. Yes, coercion. I'll use coercion. They need treatment. I will not destigmatise morally eroded behaviour because that will bring a greater risk of normalising it. And I will continue to call it its correct term. Paedophilia, paedophile. Victoria University, you failed.